Pursuant to the aforesaid order, the respondent has filed an additional counter affidavit in which he has emphasized the desirability of remanding the matter back to the disciplinary authority for redetermination of the matter. He has emphasized that failure to supply the enquiry report to the delinquent deprives him of making a proper representation to the disciplinary authority before that authority arrives at its own findings with regard to the guilt or otherwise of an employee. This admittedly not having been done, clearly the respondent was prejudiced in submitting his defense. Even if this court concludes not to remand the matter back to the disciplinary authority, at least it has to be remanded back to the High Court. He has stated that a number of points were raised before the High Court which have not been considered on merits, as the High Court decided the writ petition only on the ground of non-furnishing of the enquiry report. Since the enquiry officer and the disciplinary authority had concluded that some of the charges have been partially proved and others completely proved, it was necessary to supply the findings of the enquiry reports. Only on knowing the reasoning of the enquiry officer could the respondent give an effective explanation. It is further pointed out that with regard to the charges relating to Maharajaganj, the entire amount has been recovered. This fact is noticed by the disciplinary authority, but quite illegally it still proceeded to impose punishment on the ground of proved misconduct. Since the disciplinary authority arrived at the decision on the basis of charges which were partially completely proved, it was not possible to defend during personal hearings. According to the respondent, this was stated by him at the personal hearing, but it was ignored. In fact, the disciplinary authority was adamant to punish the respondent. All these issues could have been highlighted if the High Court had decided the writ petition on merits. Therefore, matter needs to be remanded back to the High Court for a decision on merits on all the issues raised by the respondent. In our opinion, the aforesaid grievances of the respondent are without any factual basis. The petitioner has placed on the record of this court the translated copy of the charge sheet reply of the respondent to the charge sheet. It is true that in the instant case there is no agreement available on record to indicate that the purchase was made for the purpose of export. In the absence of the said document, it is not possible to specifically state as to whether it was clear that the sale or purchase between the parties, that is the dealer and the purchaser, was inextricably linked with the export of goods. It is only when a claim is established the claim under Section 5(3) of the CST Act would be justified. At the time of auction sale, when the appellant purchased the tea from the dealer, there is nothing on record to show that a definite stand was taken by the purchaser that the purchase of tea was for the purpose of occasioning an export for which an agreement has been entered into. Since no claim was made at that stage, sales tax was realized, which was paid to the government by the dealer. However, there is a clear finding recorded by the assessing authority that the export documents were verified by him with the accounts from which it is indicated that the entire exports were effected pursuant to the prior contract on prior orders of the foreign buyers and that the export sales are supported by bills of lading, export invoices and such other valid documents. In the light of the said findings, the assessing authority allowed the exemption, clearly holding that the claim for exemption was genuine. The next two authorities, namely the appellate authority and the tribunal, agree with the said findings and there does not appear to be any serious challenge to the said findings before the said two authorities. So far as refund is concerned, the assessing authority, the appellate authority, as also the appellate tribunal have clearly recorded a finding that when a dealer has paid the tax in excess of what is due to him, it has to be refunded to the dealer in as much as the dealer is entitled to receive a fund if tax is paid in excess of what was due from him. Referring to the provisions of Section 44 of the KGST Act, the Deputy Commissioner Appeals, that is, Appellate Authority, also held that it is the seller or the dealer on whom the burden lies to prove that the sale is for fulfilling an order of the foreign buyer, since Section 5(3) refers only to the foreign buyer. This appeal is directed against the judgment and final order dated 7th October 2002 passed by the Division Bench of the High Court of Gujarat, whereby the High Court set aside the judgment and decree dated 14th December 1982 passed by the Civil Judge Jamnagar, directing the state government to pay a sum of rupees 2 lakhs with costs and interest, and dismissed the civil suit as well as cross objections filed by the appellant firm from recovery of the aggregate amount of rupees 3 lakhs on account of different counts as specified in the claim of the said suit. The brief facts of the case are as follows. The appellant firm, a partnership firm registered under the Indian Partnership Act, is carrying on the business of construction of roads, buildings, dams, etc. mostly in Saurashtra and also in other parts of the state of Gujarat. In response to the invitation of tender by the state government for construction of Fulsar Dam II in Jamnagar district, the appellant firm quoted and offered to construct the same for the quotation, specifications and design of the dam wide covering letter dated 5th June 1970. In the said letter, the appellant firm also offered that they would give rebate of 4% provided the final bill be paid within 3 months from the date of completion of the work. The offer of the appellant being the lowest amongst other parties, it was accepted by the state government with the clause that the construction work was to be completed within a period of 24 months from the works order dated 7th September 1970, which was subsequently clarified that the period of 24 months was to be commenced from the date of commencement of work. During execution of the said work, the executive engineer who was in charge of the project made certain additions, alterations and variations in respect of certain items of work and directed the appellant to carry out additional and alteration work as specified in writing from time to time. The final decision as to the alteration in respect of certain items of work and particularly in respect of the depth of foundation, which is known as cut off trenches, took long time, with the result that the firm was required to attend the larger quantity of work and thus entitled for extra payment for the additional work. As per the works contract, the firm was not paid the running bill within the specified time and therefore suffered loss. On 16th September 1976, the firm lodged a consolidated statement of their claims for the additional or altered works etc. to the executive engineer. As there was no response, the firm served a statutory notice. The appeal was filed therefrom to the Kerala Sales Tax Appellate Tribunal, which, after going through the records, referred to the provisions of refund as contained in Section 44 of the KGST Act, which reads as follows: refunds when an assessing authority finds at the time of final assessment that the dealer has paid tax in excess of what is due from him, it shall refund the excess to the dealer. When the assessing authority receives an order from any appellate or revisional authority to make refund of tax or penalty by a dealer, it shall effect the refund, notwithstanding anything contained in subsection 1 and 2. The assessing authority shall have power to adjust the amount due to be refunded under subsection 1 or subsection 2 towards the recovery of any amount due on the date of adjustment from the dealer. After referring to the said provision, it was held by the tribunal that in case the dealer has paid the tax in excess of what was due from him, it could be refunded to the dealer But here is a case where not the dealer but the appellant had claimed exemption under Section 5(1). Again, on 24th March 1977, after getting no reply, the firm filed civil suit number 30 of 1977 on the file of the civil judge Jamnagar, praying for a decree of the aggregate amount of rupees 3.5 lakhs with running interest at the rate of 9% per annum from the date of final bill till the date of suit and at the rate which may be awarded by the court from the date of suit till payment. Wide order dated 14th December 1982, the civil judge allowed the suit and passed a decree for a sum of rupees 2,27,000 with proportionate costs together with interest at 6% from the date of suit till realization. Being aggrieved by the said judgment and decree, the state government filed first appeal number 38 of 1983 before the High Court. There was an unwritten law among the Porbandar Memons living in South Africa that death should be preferred to bankruptcy. It was possible for Tayyab Sheth to pay down the whole sum of about 37,000 and costs. He meant to pay not a pie less than the amount and he did not want to be declared bankrupt. So there was only one way. Dada Abdullah should allow him to pay in moderate installments. He was equal to the occasion and granted Tayyab Sheth installments spread over a very long period. It was more difficult for me to secure the concession of payment by installments than to get the parties to agree to arbitration. But both were happy over the result and both rose in the public estimation. My joy was boundless. I had learnt the practice of law. I had learnt to find out the better side of human nature and to enter men's hearts. I realized that the true function of a lawyer was to unite parties driven as under. The lesson was so indelibly burned into me that a large part of my time during the 20 years of my practice as a lawyer was occupied in bringing about private compromises of hundreds of cases. I lost nothing thereby, not even money, certainly not my soul. In our opinion, the lawyers should advise their clients to try for mediation for resolving the disputes, especially where relationships like family relationships, business relationships are involved. Otherwise, the litigation drags on for years and decades, often ruining both the parties. Hence, the lawyers as well as litigants should follow Mahatma Gandhi's advice in the matter and try for arbitration or mediation. This is also the purpose of Section 89 of the Code of Civil Procedure. Let the matter be referred to the Bangalore Mediation Centre. The parties are directed to appear before the Bangalore Mediation Centre on 21st February 2014. The next case is of an appellant contractor, a partnership firm engaged in the construction business who was awarded a contract by the respondent state government for construction of a dam. During the execution of the said work, the executive engineer in charge of the project made certain additions, alterations, and variations in respect of certain items of work and directed the appellant to carry out the same also. The appellant filed a consolidated statement of claims for the additional works. The trial court decreed the suit for rupees 2 lakhs with proportionate costs and interest at the rate of 6% per annum from the date of the suit till realization. However, the division bench of the High Court allowed the appeal of the employer state government and dismissed the suit mainly on the ground that the plaintiff contractor had accepted the amount as per final bill under protest without disclosing any real grievance on merits, and it amounted to accepting the final bill without any valid objection and grievance. It further held that the conduct of the contractor in accepting the final bill and thereafter sending statutory notice and filing the suit for recovery of the differential amount was barred by the principle of estoppel. Aggrieved, the plaintiff contractor filed the appeal. Allowing the appeal, the court held that from various decisions of this court, the following principles emerge. First, merely because the contractor has issued no due certificate, if there is acceptable claim, the court cannot reject the same on the ground of issuance of no due certificate. Second, inasmuch as it is common that unless a discharge certificate is given in advance by the contractor, payment of bills are generally delayed. Therefore, such a clause in the contract would not be an absolute bar to a contractor raising claims which are genuine at a later date, even after submissions of such no claim certificate. Third, even after execution of full and final discharge voucher or receipt by one of the parties, if the said party is able to establish that he is entitled to further amount for which he is having adequate materials, he is not barred from claiming such amount merely because of acceptance of the final bill by mentioning without prejudice or by issuing no due certificate. In the instant case, it is true that when the final bill was submitted, the plaintiff had accepted the amount as mentioned in the final bill but under protest. It is also the specific claim of the plaintiff that on the direction of the department it had performed additional work and therefore was entitled to additional amount or damages as per the terms of agreement. Merely because the plaintiff had accepted the final bill, it cannot be deprived of its right to claim damages if it had incurred additional amount and is able to prove the same by acceptable materials.